So to summarize the IRA, or the Inflation Reduction Act, basically what that was is it created in the renewable energy industry a number of incentives and tax credits for both residential projects along with commercial projects and nonprofits, which do include places of worship, municipalities, or any non-taxable entity. That bill created a 30% tax credit or direct payment incentive with the opportunity to actually provide adders that could take you up to 50%. So it had a wide variety of additional incentives for energy efficiency, EVs, EV chargers, and all sorts of other efficiency upgrades that are tied to energy and sustainability. That is what the underlying IRA entailed. Now, after the passing of the IRA, earlier this year, the current administration passed the reconciliation bill. And so what that basically did was it modified the IRA, specifically the tax credits were rolled back. So for residential, for instance, the tax credits were actually ended at the end of this year, 2025, instead of being extended for several years after. Additionally, the nonprofit and commercial tax credit and direct pay incentive was reduced as far as the timeline and how long that lasts. However, it does still exist for both nonprofits of any kind, along with commercial entities, and that actually is fully in place, along with the ability to have those adders based on geographic location. That actually is fully in place until the end of 2027. So that reconciliation bill, like I said, primarily rolled back the timeline on tax credits. The residential is over the end of this year, but commercial and nonprofits are still fully in place in the next couple of years. And then there was also a rollback of EV tax credits and other efficiency upgrades as well. So while this year we have faced a lot of different challenges, one of those in particular is kind of this massive rush we've seen in order to kind of capture that tax credit, which in order to do that, you have to go through the proper steps of permitting and interconnection with the utility. And there's been deadlines set, which we're very proud to have met for all our clients with those utilities. As far as how the reconciliation bill impacted our clients and the industry as a whole, first and foremost, it is reducing the amount of production that is being added to the grid at large. And this is happening simultaneously with a demand that is rising faster than ever. So it is going to impact not only people who are interested in solar or otherwise, it is going to impact every single person who pays an electric bill, not only in the state of Michigan, but in the country. It's simple supply and demand. So there's going to be rising electric rates faster than we've ever seen before. But then on the ground level, when it comes to solar and people interested in that, it impacts residential homeowners the most because that does prevent them from getting a tax credit moving forward. With that said, though, you pair that with ever rising electric rates. So oddly enough, it actually creates more value for solar than ever before, even without the tax credit. Because as electric rates climb, the value of a solar system climbs with it because you are insulating yourself from those rising rates. And then for companies like us, and we're very proud of this, we have already created a system and an approach to our designs and our project planning that was preemptively considering a post-tax credit environment because the passage of the IRA was never a guarantee. So the way we approach designs is much more strategic and allows us to maximize that value with any individual homeowner through a number of different strategic steps that allow us to speed up people's paybacks regardless of the tax credit. And then as those electric rates climb, we're actually going to see value of solar paired with that strategic design, providing great value for residential homeowners, even without that tax credit. And then as far as commercial and nonprofits are impacted, really they're not impacted right now because for the next 2 years, that's fully in place. So there'll be a lot of nonprofits and commercial entities taking advantage of that for the next 2 years. Now, as far as how that reconciliation bill not only affects energy prices at large, but also clients or potential system owners and solar system owners, what other ripple effects we've experienced really in the industry at large, there's a number. I mean, that now impacts manufacturers and suppliers as far as understanding what do they need to be producing. Is it more geared towards a residential market versus a commercial market? How much should they supply in stock? So that is something that right now the market itself is in this kind of correction period as we sort of see what will the market look like for solar in the coming years. So there is that impact on the material side. However, there is still, again, being diligent and strategic with your planning, there is still a bunch of manufacturers that are continuing to produce for residential. It's just going to potentially be slightly less supply because they're expecting, slightly less demand, which does make sense. But on top of that, there's no slowing down where the technology is headed as far as efficiency of systems, cost of systems. It's continuing to develop at a rapid pace. So that includes things like batteries that are paired with systems. We are going to be seeing more and more of that. And honestly, the impact overall, while it is systemic across the board, the technology has advanced so far already that regardless of the tax credit implications or the changes of material market, the value is there. The technology has already surpassed that tipping point where it's still a good investment regardless. So it is yet to be determined exactly what that material market at large is going to look like. There's a ripple effect beyond that too with material, just with an uncertainty when it comes to policy changes. And that's been something that we're addressing with clients and making sure they understand what has exactly changed, how that works. How do you avoid any penalties of your potential incentives next year? And so we're navigating that and helping clients navigate it. And as long as you do your due diligence and understand what these changes actually mean and how do you navigate them, well, then as long as you do that and you move forward with the installer that thinks of these things and gets ahead of it, then the value's there, the market's there, solar is going to continue to increase in value. And there is really no stopping the momentum at this point unless you find a way to turn the sun off, which obviously isn't going to happen. So overall, we are still very excited for the next few years, regardless of these changes, but it is going to be a slightly different market moving forward. As far as interconnection itself, I think sometimes people aren't exactly sure what we mean by that. And what interconnection really is it is literally connecting your solar system directly to the grid itself, which does require approval from the utility to make sure you don't risk any backfeeding or any safety concerns of that nature. So it goes through a formal process that we have a ton of experience with, and we've never failed an interconnection application process. But you submit to the utility what it is that you're going to be adding to the grid. And if you know what you're doing, you understand what their approval equations are and how you can submit interconnection applications that are going to be approved within their guidelines. The result is the utility essentially giving the green light to go ahead and install that system per the size that you've submitted with your application. And then that allows you to safely interconnect to the grid. And then if your system overproduces, then you'll send that power back to the grid. And then you receive a bill credit for the future. So that is really fundamentally what interconnection really means. The reality is that there is still a lot to be optimistic about the industry in general, our company, and where things are headed. There is still wide-scale adoption taking place in the commercial and nonprofit sector. That is still fully in place with incentives for the next few years. So that's something that we're already filling a schedule next year in that capacity. We're also very proud of the fact that we're able to be partnering with one of the largest retailers in the country that is adopting solar on a wide scale moving forward over the next few years. And the financials are simply too good to deny at this point because the technology has come so far. And on top of this too, it's an interesting conundrum that we find ourselves in when we have solar having tax credits removed. But what does that mean? It means that we're having a tremendous amount of energy production that is now not being added to the grid through, say, federal pulling of grants and for large scale projects, especially scaled utility projects that are now not going to go online. Meanwhile, we're experiencing the largest demand for electricity we've ever seen, and that is only rising exponentially with things like data centers, for instance. So overall, there is a lot still to be excited about, moving forward. The reality is the investment will just get better and better for all types of system owners, residential or otherwise.